Okay, so we are back with our 2 days of live coverage of FPA NorCal here in beautiful and today very sunny San Francisco. And joining me next is one of my favorite repeat guests, Michael Kitces.
Appreciate that.
Michael, thanks for joining me again.
Absolutely, it's good to be here.
All right, so I was able to catch a little bit of your keynote yesterday.
Yes.
But I was coming back and forth doing some interviews. Did you see me with the camera in the back of the room?
Yeah, just like trying to get a little picture.
We're getting a little B-roll, as they say in the biz. But your topic was an excellent one, which is what was it called exactly? How advisors can be happier, or what?
Yeah. What makes advisors happy?
Yes.
At least according to research, because we love to do research. I can't answer happiness questions without bringing charts and graphs and data.
And lots of data.
So lots of data. So that's what we did. We run a series of 4 research studies on the Kitces platform, one on advisor technology, one on marketing, one on productivity, and one on advisor well-being, such like what's associated with well-being and happiness of advisors, both because it's sort of nice personally to feel like we're enjoying our jobs and work, and because, as we show very clearly in the data, differences in advisor happiness is an incredibly strong predictor of advisor turnover. Advisors that show up as thriving in our scale have sub 1% turnover rates, and advisors who are not doing well on some of our measures have 10+% turnover rates. And so, in advisory firm context, not only when it's hard to deal with advisors who leave, but advisors who leave often means clients and revenue leaves as well. It becomes like very high stakes for the business to actually figure out how to keep your advisors happier so they don't leave.
Okay, so I want to know. So I'm an advisor myself. I want to know how to stay happier, and also want to make sure our advisors at Sovereign stay happy. What could we do, or what are they looking for?
So there are a few things that show up in our research. Frankly, like some that are a little more in control than others. Ironically, one of the biggest drivers that we find for overall advisor happiness and well-being is just raw years of experience, particularly client-facing experience, because industry experience can mean a lot of different things. But there's just so much that compounds in the career of being an advisor, right? My knowledge and technical skills, my communication and relationship skills, the depth of my client relationships, which we tend to enjoy when they get deeper. It's like my personal brand and my community as we get to a certain age and stage in this career, and all of a sudden, like, our friends and family circles start lobbing over some pretty good referrals and introductions. You're going like, where was this 10, 15 years ago when I really, really needed it? And now here it is when I'm already kind of doing well, but thanks for the opportunity. So that there's a lot that actually just comes from experience. Unfortunately, it's not exactly like a lever we can turn quickly to say, like, well, then turn up the experience lever.
Once you get to 30 years of experience, you're kind of wishing you were back when you were only 15 years.
No, the youth is wasted on the young.
Exactly.
But what we do find on the one hand, that means first of all, like, for younger advisors, could just help to know, like, it really does get better. Like, if you can survive the short term, it really does, like, empirically from all of our data, it gets a lot better in the long run if you can get through the tough early years, which means, find a firm environment that's stable enough that you can survive. Pick things that aren't going to burn you out or wash you out very quickly. Like, anything you can do to stay in the race and treat it like a marathon and not a sprint so that you can get to the end tends to be very good at the end. And ironically, we find well-being and happiness for advisors is so off the charts as once they get to 25, 30 plus years that I look at our data and I'm like, well, I know why all the industry research says there's a dearth of succession plans. If you were at like peak income and peak earnings and peak happiness in your practice with peak depth of relationships, and you're not even working as many hours anymore, like, why would you leave? It's a sweet
clipping that desk.
Like it's great. Why would you leave? To me, that's even shaped a lot of our dialogues over the years. I talk a lot less now about succession plans. Not that there aren't some of us that like really want to do that and bring the person in and see the things handed off. But for a lot of firms, I find like what they really need is not a succession plan. They just need a continuity exit plan, right? They need a buy-sell agreement of who's going to come in when they can't, because as nice as it is after many years of experience, you cannot do this indefinitely, unfortunately. At some point, nature takes hold. So we do need some way to make sure there's continuity for clients, that they are protected, but maybe that just means having a buy-sell agreement with someone who can drop in when you suddenly can't do it anymore, and not necessarily spending many years trying to work yourself out of a job that maybe you didn't actually want to work yourself out of.
Okay. So other than waiting 20 or 30 years, how else can these advisors get happier?
So two other drivers that I would highlight in this context. The first, no great surprise for any of us who have practiced, but we can show very clearly, like, if there's one thing that we all collectively hate, it is doing admin servicing and compliance paperwork.
Yep.
Right? It is just the drag on all of us, which means pretty directly, like the firms that are most effective at lifting those admin compliance servicing paperwork burdens off of their advisors tend to have much higher happiness and much lower turnover.
Yeah.
What's striking though is what we find actually drives those outcomes is not necessarily what a lot of advisors, or I should say like a lot of firms and platforms expect. When we drill down to it, what we find, for instance, technology. A lot of us spending a lot of dollars and time these days trying to figure out how to solve all the various technology pain points. We do find there is a pretty direct relationship between how advisors' overall happiness and how well they rate their firm's tech stack. Right? Just if you log into the tech every day and it's frustrating, it just grates on you every day. And if you log in and the tech is like great and does all the things that you want it to do, we tend to be much happier. The striking effect though is that we find, as much as the technology helps, what helps lift admin tasks work even more is just having an admin person to delegate them to.
Yeah.
And that admin support and someone to delegate to not only lifts admin work as much or more than good tech, it also skyrockets productivity in a way that technology actually doesn't. And this is one of the striking things I think we've even talked on this, podcast in the past as well. You know, there's a huge amount of industry focus on using technology to lift productivity, and what we find is the true net productivity lifts when you measure things like revenue per advisor is remarkably negligible between very poor technology firms and very good technology firms. And when you look at productivity lifts from having good staff support, like just having admin support for everyone, an associate advisor when they've got enough clients to have an associate advisor help, we see just flat out like 2x, 3x the productivity.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we got great tech, our efficiency went up 2%. We got an admin, our efficiency went up 200%.
Right.
Like it's not even playing the same game.
That's right.
And the striking thing then is when you drill down to it, the admin both skyrockets productivity and creates more admin relief than tech. And what we actually get to is, yes, tech helps, but first of all, just for firms to recognize, tech is not an efficiency improvement for the firm, at least as it relates to the advisors. Back office automation can help a little bit more, but it is much less an efficiency lift and much more of a pure experience play.
Okay, so don't make me fill out forms.
Don't make me fill out forms, but don't spend so much time trying to figure out how to make an app to do this and an app to do that and an app to do that and an app to do that. Give me a freaking admin person, tell them to do all of that, exactly. And then I don't need to deal with it.
Right.
Right, because otherwise we get advisors like, we focus so much on efficiency, we bought 17 apps to solve every single one of our advisors' problems, and now they're just pissed they have to log into so many things.
Right.
It's like, because you're not giving them anyone to delegate to, where then they don't have to log into any of the software.
Yep.
You're just giving them more tech, and then they have to manage the tech and track around with the tech. Likewise, we find advisors tend to get much happier when their teams are actually their teams and not heavily centralized.
Okay.
Because when all of the resources get centralized, I don't actually have anyone to help me directly. It's like, well, I call Betty about the Smiths, and I call Larry about the Joneses, and I call Sheila to find out how this other client's doing, and then this other client about that client. And the firm says, like, our centralized teams are so much more efficient. I'm like, yeah, but now your advisors have to be air traffic controllers, routing this request here and that request there and that request there, and they can't pick up the phone to anyone to find out what's going on with the particular client because you made a giant centralized thing with a ticketing system and all the stuff we do to scale. But what firms end up doing is they scale what are actually technically the lower cost parts of their business and put a huge cognitive and administrative management load on the advisors who are both expensive and hate managing the admin layer.
Right.
So we find when firms centralize all those functions, advisor happiness goes down. And when the advisor still has someone on their team and only part of the functions are centralized, happiness goes up, right? So practically, look, if we're a very planning oriented firm, like, don't centralize my ops, don't centralize my planning, but you can totally centralize my investments.
Right.
Because that's not really core to what I'm doing with my clients. They have money, it needs to land somewhere. But I want my admin and planning folks with me. If I'm a more investment-oriented firm and we do the occasional plan for clients, like, cool, then like I need my ops person and my trader. because those are my core functions, but you could totally centralize planning. I'll just kind of call them when I need them.
Right.
So non-core functions to the advisor centralized well, but core functions to the advisor, happiness tends to go down when we centralize because the advisors are so involved in those functions that if they're centralized, they have to manage the administrative layer of where's the status of my task with all these different people across all these different clients.
Yeah.
And now they're actually spending very expensive time managing admin coordination that they didn't want to do in the first place.
Makes sense. Excuse me. What do you think about having a dedicated associate advisor to the senior advisor, and then that person handles all the other different centralization points?
So dedicated associate advisor who handles the rest of the centralization can work. We find that still scores pretty well as long as there's at least one person fully dedicated to the advisor who can be the one who routes and manages centralized resources so the advisor doesn't have to. So at least one on the team makes the rest of the load more manageable because it becomes the associate's load and not the individual advisor's load. But what we see a lot of firms now starting to do is say like being more cognizant of what gets centralized in the first place, right? It's things like, okay, maybe we don't need to centralize all the plan prep and production because it's technically more efficient, but then the advisor has to manage their plans across 3 different paraplanners, and it actually would have been easier to just let them have their right-hand person. But we can centralize an advanced planning team, right? The people with the high specialization to do the truly one-off scenarios that's not routine in anyone's practice. But if we have a sizable number of advisors, it comes up often enough. It's nice to have a resource. So you centralize what then becomes sort of non-core to the daily routine, but specialized capabilities are great to be centralized because no one utilizes them enough individually, so it helps to be centralized. But when you get down to if the activity is day-to-day enough, advisors tend to be much happier when they've just got a team built directly around them because of all the synergies that come from a team, right? I've been working with my associate and admin for many years, and they know how I like to show up to meetings. They know when the Smiths are on the calendar on Thursday, that Mrs. Smith always likes the report prepared a certain way, and I don't have to remember she's coming on Thursday. She likes the special report. I have to send the ticket in, send the special version of the report. I've got an admin staff who's worked with all of our clients and just knows Mrs. Smith's coming in on Thursday. You need the special report. I don't even have to say it because we've learned it on the team. So the synergy that you get from a team that gels, we find often more than offsets whatever benefits from centralization you were getting if it was something that was really core to the advisor.
That institutional knowledge is so important, right? So I could say something in 1.5 phrases to one of my senior people. And they know exactly what to do.
They know exactly what's happening. But who doesn't know? The person on the other end of your ticketing system.
And that ticket has to have bullet point, don't forget this.
And then I have to write all that stuff out. I have to write it again every time, right? And now I'm getting dragged down as advisor. I mean, I'm not trying to knock on ticketing systems and such. I've lived with them as well. But to me, it's recognizing, what are you trying to solve for in the firm, really? And what I hear a lot of firms say is, we're trying to solve for the efficiency of the advisor, so we centralize all these resources. I'm like, that's not really actually solving for the efficiency of the advisor, that's solving for the efficiency of the centralized resource. And so that's cool, but are you solving for the efficiency of the centralized resource at a cost of the advisor that actually makes the net outcome of the firm worse?
Okay. Was there number 3, I think?
Yeah, I think the last that I would highlight, we really drill down to where do advisors get happiness. What we find is it comes when we can eventually take control of our time and our schedule. Right. Almost no one feels great working 50, 55 plus hours a week, grinding away with a lot of clients. Even if I've got team support, but there's still so much stuff and so many clients going on that I'm buried in too many hours, it doesn't feel good. And when you drill down to how do we actually solve for that, it means by some means we have to get to the point where we're compensated well for our time. Right? I'm only doing the best and highest value work with clients who can afford to pay whatever that value is, and I'm creating leverage for myself with my team so that we can do my highest and best use time. Right. So very practically, then what does that mean? It means happier advisors get really clear about their boundaries of the minimum amount of time it takes to serve a client, and they set clear fee minimums.
Right.
It means they actually have a better pricing. If you are an amazing advisor that delivers above average service and you are better than all the advisors around, you really should be charging more than 1%.
Yeah.
Because 1% is the average, and above average advisors shouldn't charge average fees. That just means you're doing more service than you're bringing in revenue, which means now you don't have the dollars to hire the team, and you have to work more hours to get to the dollars you need to make the math work. And that's why for a lot of us we feel overworked and overloaded and burning out, because we are undercharging for the quality of service, or we're working with too many clients who are not actually paying the cost that it takes to deliver the service. And when those get fixed, what happens for most advisors is they discover very quickly, I can actually make all the revenue I need to generate all the income I want with way fewer clients.
Yeah.
And then the client count goes down, and then the work gets simpler, and the calendar gets simpler, and I actually don't even need quite as much team around me because there isn't as many clients to serve, so now the team management responsibilities are easier. And we'll see a lot of advisors that go through a process of trying to clean up their fees and right-size their clients and come out the other end and realize, like, wow, I might now be working with 10, 20, 30, 50% fewer clients, and my take-home is the same, and my hours just dropped by 20 to 30%. I was working 55 hours a week, and now I'm working 35 hours a week.
And who wouldn't like that?
And who wouldn't like that, right? It feels great. I mean, it's hard, right? It only works when we can get clear on setting boundaries of how much work does it really take to do this? What is the cost of that time? And pricing appropriately. And for a lot of us, those are not the most comfortable conversations, and we tend to put them off a little for a wide range of good reasons. But like so many dynamics for us as humans, if we don't get good at setting boundaries, this becomes a problem. And when we do get setting good at boundaries, happiness tends to lift as a result.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to put a pin in it for today. Michael Kitces, thank you for joining me as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's it for this particular segment. We have 2 more to go. I'll be back in another hour with some more content. I will see you then.
Take care.
Michael, thank you. That was great.
Absolutely.